From the moment the train pulled into Saint-Pierre-des-Vignes, Elena Rocher felt the cold already sharpening the night air. She had been flown from Paris on 48 hours' notice, hired as the new head sommelier for Domaine du Clair de Lune, an estate celebrated for its limestone terraces and ghost stories whispered between rows of Cabernet Franc. Yet this year's legend felt different. The first killing frost, predicted for tonight, would allow the family to attempt its first ice wine in 26 years. Grapes hung untouched, waiting to be picked in the dark when their water content froze solid and their sugars intensified. That was, in theory, why Eleanor was here, to supervise the midnight pressing, taste the viscous nectar, and bless it for auction. As Adrien Laurent, the estate's patriarch, told her in his hiring letter, "A sommelier's blessing is half the vintage's price." But letters never speak of the tension found in people's eyes. When she exited the station, two siblings awaited her, standing on opposite ends of the platform like opposing chess pieces. Camille Laurent, the winemaker, cheeks pink with competence and fatigue, and Bastien Laurent, the business manager, impeccably pressed and radiating impatience. They hardly looked at each other. A family feud, Elena wrote in the small moleskin she kept by reflex. She had no idea that feud would turn lethal before the grapes reached the press. The chateau crouched on a rise overlooking the Loire, its stone walls lit orange by lanterns flaring against the cold. Inside, the household staff prepared vats, hoses, and stainless steel basket presses. Frost crystals already glazed the north-facing windows. Outside, the vines glittered like chandeliers. Adrien, gaunt and bright-eyed at 69, greeted Elena with an embrace that smelled of sandalwood and oxidation. "I trust my children did not quarrel too loudly on the drive," he asked, half joking. Camille and Bastien murmured disclaimers and drifted to separate corners of the great hall. The fourth sibling, Lucy, arrived late, her motorcycle growling down the gravel path. She wore black leather, ash-blonde hair whipping in the wind, a camera slung across her back. "Someone has to document tonight, non?" she said, greeting Eleanor like an old friend, though they had never met. Within minutes, Lucy's camera clicked, grapes netted against birds, thermometers plunging toward -8 Celsius, vats polished to mirror shine. Eleanor noticed she also filmed Bastien unlocking the family tasting vault where old vintages slumbered. Lucy zoomed in on the heavy iron key twisting in the lock. At 9 p.m. they convened in the barn-converted press room for a final briefing. Adrien explained the procedure. Pickers would enter the vines at 3 a.m. Fruit must reach the presses still frozen. Every minute mattered. "And so does silence," he added, gazing at his children. "Tonight we are all one." But the hush he asked for dissolved the moment he stepped away. Camille scrutinized yeast cultures like an anxious mother, refusing help from Bastien. He, in turn, scrolled through spreadsheets on his tablet, muttering about insurance policies that would void if yields fell under quota. Lucy quipped that numbers were drier than over-oaked Chardonnay, earning Bastien's glare. Only Eleanor moved freely between them, translating Adrien's wishes into tasks. Sanitize hoses, chill fermenters, prepare pipettes. She felt like a conductor coaxing harmony from discordant instruments. But she also sensed undercurrents. Camille's gloves trembled when she measured pH. Bastien's phone buzzed with calls he silenced. Lucy's lens lingered on faces more than equipment. And above them all, Adrien walked with a cane, the rhythm of his steps indicating joint pain, or perhaps nervous anticipation. At 10:30, he retired to his study, leaving Eleanor nominally in charge. Outside, the temperature plummeted. Moonlight silvered the fields, turning each grape into a crystal bead. Eleanor wrapped herself in a wool coat and wandered among the rows, tasting skins, pulp resilient, sugars ripe, acidity alive. She glanced back at the chateau and saw windows lit in uneven pattern. Camille in the laboratory wing, Bastien in the office, Lucy prowling the galleries with her camera. A taut suspense stretched across the estate like a tripwire. In the cold stillness, Eleanor heard things amplify. The snap of a twig beneath her boot, the distant bark of the estate dog, the whine of a motorcycle engine cooling. Her palate memorized the flavor of the night: juniper, iron, frozen leaf. She returned to the press room where pickers warmed their hands around mugs of mulled wine. Midnight chimed. 2 more hours until harvest. She reminded herself she was here for grapes and balance and finish, not family drama. Yet drama seemed to grow on these vines too. A sudden crash reverberated through the stone corridor. Pickers jolted. Elena sprinted toward the noise and found Lucy standing before the shattered door of the tasting vault. The heavy iron key still dangled from the lock. The door's bar had been forced inward. Inside, shelves were dishevelled. Bottles lay on their sides, leaking dark, ruby puddles. Lucy's face was white. "I heard something," she stammered. "Came down to film Dad's old 76 ice wine for B-roll and found this." At first glance it looked like vandalism, but Elena's eyes fixed on a crimson smear leading toward the back shelf. She followed it and discovered Bastien's ledger, pages torn out. Footprints, faint but visible in the spillage, led back to the corridor. Someone had broken in, searched, and fled. Pickers murmured superstition. Frost nights invite restless spirits. Eleanor asked them to fetch Camille and Adrian. One worker ran, another retreated, crossing himself. Lucy kept shooting, her flash strobing off glass shards. Camille arrived first, hair unbound, eyes wide behind steamed-up goggles. She surveyed the wreckage, then clasped a hand over her mouth. The 83 Reserve, that was Mother's vintage. Bastien burst in moments later, face flushed, chest heaving. "What in God's name?" he yelled, stepping across broken glass. Eleanor watched him kneel beside the ledger, then tuck something into his coat before standing. Adrian finally appeared, leaning heavily on his cane. The patriarch absorbed the scene with a grimace that aged him a decade. "Enough," he said. "We will not postpone harvest. Whoever did this will confess after the grapes are safe." He ordered them all back to work. The pickers, superstitious but loyal, obeyed. Lucy hung back, lowering her camera only when Adrian's gaze turned icy. She whispered to Elena, "He's protecting the wine over everything. Classic Papa." Elena couldn't disagree. Still, the vault smelled of copper and betrayal. She slipped one of the broken labels into her pocket, as if tapping a living vein of evidence. At 2:50 a.m., the pickers formed lines between rows, headlamps flickering like fireflies. Frost clung to their beards and lashes. Under Elena's supervision, they snipped bunches the size of children's fists, dropping them into bins that rattled against the carts. She tasted a berry, found the frozen juice thick as honey, and nodded approval. Under stars brittle with cold, the harvest became almost liturgical. Snip, breath, crunch of boots, cartwheels creaking under crystalline load. But tension still vibrated. Camille worked 2 rows away from Bastien, trading no words. Lucy glided between them, filming. When Elena glanced at her watch, it read 3:47 a.m. 2 more rows, maybe 3, then pressing. She allowed herself a sip of cognac from the flask hidden in her coat, the burn a welcome companion. A scream tore through the vines. Pickers froze. A headlamp tilted upward, searching. Elena rushed toward the sound, pushing through canes until she nearly collided with Camille, who knelt in the mud, gloved hands bloody. Beside her lay Bastien, eyes open to the sky, throat slashed. His headlamp illuminated frost like shattered mirrors around him. The pruning shears lay nearby, blades sticky with red. For a second, Eleanor could not breathe. The cold felt molten. Camille sobbed. He grabbed me. I pushed him away. Then he fell on the shears. Pickers backed away, murmuring prayers. Lucy appeared, camera still rolling, tears freezing on her cheeks. Eleanor wanted to order her to stop filming, but words lodged in her throat. Adrian arrived, cane stabbing the soil. He saw Bastien's body, then snapped at a foreman to call the gendarmerie. Time forked. One branch led toward legal procedures, the other toward the press room where grapes thawed by the minute. The patriarch chose both. Camille and Elena, finish the pressing. The rest, step away until police arrive. Camille protested, incoherent. Adrian gripped her shoulders. Your brother would haunt us if we wasted these grapes, he said, voice glacial. Eleanor felt suddenly responsible, not just for wine, but for truth. She guided Camille back to the press room, leaving Bastien's body among the vines like a sacrificial offering. Inside, stainless steel presses gleamed under fluorescent lights. The grapes, still mostly frozen, were fed into the basket. Hand crank turned. First drops oozed dark gold. Camille's tears fell into the must. He was going to sell the estate, she whispered. I saw the contracts. That's why the vault was searched. He needed Mother's deeds. Eleanor remembered Bastien pocketing papers. Sell to whom? She asked. Some foreign conglomerate. Father refused, but Bastien had majority shares through Mother's inheritance. Tonight he was going to strong-arm us after the harvest, force Father to sign. Camille wiped her eyes with her sleeve, leaving streaks of wine and blood across her cheek. We argued earlier, she admitted, but I didn't kill him. Eleanor believed she might be telling the truth. The slash wound looked deliberate, not accidental. Too clean, the angle wrong for a fall. Lucy entered, having filmed statements to police. She set her camera down, then reached inside her jacket and produced Bastien's torn ledger pages. I snatched these before police could confiscate them, she said. Camille glared at her. Eleanor took the pages, scanning columns of numbers, bank transfers to an account labelled Project Borealis. She spotted a coded note. Purchase triggered at first frost. Why the specific timing? She pictured Bastien checking his phone earlier. Perhaps a clause activated only if Adrian survived until ice wine pressing, meaning Bastien needed Adrian alive, not dead. Then who would benefit from Bastien's death? Elena's gaze shifted to Camille, then to Lucy, then spiraled back to Adrian. Police sirens echoed down the valley. Officer Moreau, broad-shouldered and laconic, sealed off the vineyard. He questioned pickers while forensics photographed shears and footprints. Camille repeated her story. Argument, shove, accident. Moreau's brow furrowed. Elena asked permission to fetch her tasting notes from the vault, citing professional duty. Surprisingly, he granted 5 minutes, sending a junior officer with her. Inside the vault, she scanned shelves, pretending to look for notebooks, but instead studied the broken bottles. Only Mother's 83 Reserve seemed targeted, 6 shattered, 2 missing. Why smash wine when the rest stood intact? She knelt and sniffed the spilled liquid, prune, balsamic, volatile acidity, ruined. But near the wall lay a cork that smelled not of wine, but of almond. Cyanide. Her heartbeat galloped. Someone had poisoned the 83 reserve. If Adrian opened a commemorative bottle tonight, he would die, leaving Bastien the estate. But Bastien lay dead instead. The plot had inverted. Elena pocketed the cork, then returned to the press room where Officer Moreau now interviewed Adrian. The patriarch sat with blanket over his shoulders, cane across his lap. His eyes were watery but hard. Elena stepped forward. "I need to pour a glass for analysis," she told Moreau, gesturing to the fermenting must. He nodded. She filled 3 glasses, one of fresh ice wine, one of generic Chenin Blanc, and one hidden sample of the poisoned 83 she had scooped from the floor. She handed the Chenin to Adrian. "For your nerves." He sipped. Nothing happened. Then she offered him the ice wine. He sipped again, nodding. Finally, she lifted the 83 sample toward Lucy. "For the camera, a taste of history," she said. Lucy reached, but Adrian's cane shot out, knocking the glass from Elena's hand. It shattered, releasing bitter almonds. Officer Moreau stiffened. Elena spoke. "Murder weapon number 1. She explained. "Poisoned reserve intended for Adrian." Bastien likely didn't know. He only staged burglary to find deeds. But someone poisoned the bottle to intercept Adrian before Bastien could act. That someone then killed Bastien with pruning shears to mask earlier plan. Motive: protect the estate from sale, frame Bastien as sole villain. She turned to Camille, but intuition swerved. Camille loved vines, yes, but her panic felt genuine. Lucy, on the other hand, had documented every conflict. She alone had access to cyanide in the lab where she developed photographs. And she alone possessed both motive, save artistic legacy from corporate takeover, and the dramatist's eye to craft a compelling narrative. Lucy laughed softly, camera light blinking red, still recording. "Every vintage needs a story," she said. "Ice wine born of betrayal, that will sell for millions, ensure the estate survives, even thrive. People pay more for myth than liquid." Moreau moved to cuff her, but she pivoted, sprinting toward the door. Elena blocked her path with a barrel thief, tripping her. The officer pinned Lucy, retrieving a vial of potassium cyanide from her pocket. Her camera clattered, lens cracked, still filming the floorboards. Lucy spat. "Papa would have signed away our souls. Bastien helped him. I saved us." Adrian closed his eyes, tears sliding down his weathered face. Dawn bled pink over the valley. The first press's yield filled only a single barrique, 225 litres of amber syrup. Camille siphoned a sample. Hands still trembling, she passed the glass to Elena. The sommelier inhaled aromas of apricot, saffron, and grief. She sipped. The flavour unfolded with electric intensity, sweetness balanced by citric spine, a finish that lingered like memory. Elena faced Officer Moreau. "Legally, this barrel is evidence, but vitally, it is also proof of endurance. Please seal it formally, then someday uncork it at a tribunal. Let the jury taste what price was paid." Moreau agreed, affixing police tape around the barrique. The sun climbed, melting frost into dew. Bastien's body was lifted from the rows. Lucy was driven away in a squad car, her camera bag sealed as evidence. Adrian stood between vines, leaning on his cane, watching soil turn muddy where his son's blood had soaked. Camille approached him, placing a gloved hand on his arm. No words formed, only the steam of their breath mingled. Eleanor left them to grief and walked toward the chateau, where the staff gathered in hushed clusters. She would gather her bag after answering Moreau's final questions, then catch the noon train to Paris. Yet she paused at the doorway and looked back. The vineyard stretched like pages of an unfinished book. Somewhere beneath those rows lay the echo of Lucy's conviction. Every vintage needs a story. Elena murmured to herself, but not every story needs a body. Then she entered the silent hall where a single barrel cooled, and where future tasters would one day raise glasses bright as topaz and taste both frost and fire.